Hi, hello everyone. Welcome to our very first Facebook live stream. If you're joining us from Manila or in Asia, good evening and thank you for watching. My name is Fatima Manalili, and I am the director of Bellas Artes Projects. Before we get started with the talk, I'll say a few words about our organization and give you an update and let you know what we have coming up. For those of you that are not familiar with our organization, we host an artist residency that takes place in the province of Bagak Bataan. And we also used to have an exhibition space in the National Capital Region of Manila. And needless to say, both of these programs have been interrupted and diverted by the current health crisis. And we, like many other cultural institutions all over the world, are now figuring out and navigating how to best deliver this content we have for you and keep connecting. And so our residencies right now are currently on hold in the sense of inviting artists to come and visit the Philippines. But that does, but we could still find ways to connect and share our culture, our Filipino heritage and history using the technologies we have from different parts of the world. With regards to our exhibition space, a few of you might be aware that we were in the process of relocating from Makati City to Quezon City. And so that is indefinitely postponed as well due to social distancing mandates. But we are very much looking forward to being with you together again in person. So tonight we're bringing to you our education program, ESKWELA, entirely online. The last time we saw a few of you was back in January where we had two sessions with curators Ansel Frank and Candice Hopkins. And so in the next cycle coming up, what we have coming up for you in the next couple of months, we have four topics. Queer Filipiniana with Susan Stryker, who is the visiting professor of women's studies, of women's gender and sexuality studies currently at Yale University. Curatorial Delirium with Dr. Isabel Whiteleg, who is the director of postgraduate research in the School of Museum Studies at the University of Leicester. Contest Responsive Art with Jonathan De Andre, another artist based in Brazil. And tonight we are presenting you with movement and the choreographic turn in performance. And I will introduce to you our artistic director, Inti Guerrero, who maybe you could speak more about what we have planned for tonight and also introduce our wonderful guests. So thank you again. And please leave a comment in the section.
Thank you, Fatima. So I hope everyone is hearing me, and also good evening, Manila, and everyone who is in Asia time zone, and everyone who's online in other places of the world. And the topic of Escuela that is related to dance and choreography, which is the section that we've invited Gustavo and Fernanda. We have already began that topic with two Filipino artists, performers who lived in Manila and did in their own way their seminars and workshops before COVID-19 in our space in Manila. That was Asa Hodgson and George Serafin. And now Gustavo and Fernanda, two incredible Brazilian artists that are based in Lisbon and that have backgrounds in dance, in anthropology, and with site-specific practice. They were meant to come to the Philippines, but decided nonetheless to create this seminar section of basically sharing their practice and their collaboration. I've asked them to also speak of their individual work a little bit at the beginning, and we will have time for questions. But as Fatima said, just please ask, you can write in the chat next to the video that you see there. So um, I will ask Fernanda, who is now joining us from Rio de Janeiro. It's morning there. To I think she's right next to me. Yes, hi, how are you? And Gustavo, who's in Lisbon.
Hello, everybody.
If you can share now your presentation so that we can put it in the platform, that would be great. And yeah, and we're very happy to be doing this, and thank you for making time for this.
Yes. So good evening for you all in Manila and Philippines. We are very happy to be here, to be, I don't know exactly, in that place where we are able to meet now in the middle of this crisis. So thank you for this invitation, and we will start by sharing a little bit about our trajectory and presenting ourselves. So we will share a bit of our work, and we will focus our presentation in the project we will do in Manila as soon as it is possible. No, we are supposed to be in Manila now with a project called Steaming Cities. And so we will start first a bit presenting our work, and then we will share the procedures, the methodology, and the concerns of Steaming Cities project. So this is us together. And I'm sorry, I don't know, Gustavo, do you want to say something?
Yeah, just to thank you, Inti, Fatima, and Desi, and the whole Bell Arts projects for the invitation, and also for this amazing program, ESKWELA. Thank you, Fernanda, my partner. And it's a really sad and difficult moment, but in the world. So it's amazing to find ways of coming together and make art go on in this world more than ever. So good morning, good evening from all the people who are joining us. And so we're going to pass to our presentations of our individual projects so that you understand more or less the universe we've been visiting individually, and then are merging together in this site-specific project, which is Steaming Cities. Fernanda, with you, the word.
Me and Gustavo, we have a long-term collaboration. So I don't know exactly, but for sure more than 10 years we are sharing some practices, and every time we have the opportunity, we feed this collaboration we have around the site-specific practices. And we have a large range of sharing concerns about the dimension of the situated dimension of the encounter. No, so really focusing on this everyday life material that sometimes we don't really notice, but that makes the body of all we have. No, so our conviviality and the politics that we put there when we start to live together, no, and how to sustain it as well. So this somehow we share and feed our collaboration, but also our works individually in different ways. No, in my case, I have a strong background in anthropology, and I have a project that I'm running in Lisbon, in fact, but there has different clusters in other cities in Brazil and also in Spain. And this project that is called Art and Lab. No, it's an autonomous platform for artistic practice-based research. And I founded this platform when I drifted. I started to drift from my previous career in straight anthropology. So in the beginning, I didn't left the university, but now yes. no, because this platform started to grow, and this is this research is focused in finding and creating embodied practices to research the politics of togetherness, let's say, no. That is the name of this. um, this means that I started to deviate, no, the procedures of anthropology, especially ethnography, that is its methodology, to a different use, no, a more reciprocal use, in fact, no, where we could focus, let's say, in an endless way, in that dimension of the research that is connected to the encounter itself, no, that normally in a normal trajectory in anthropology, this is the first step of a research, but then this somehow is used to give consistency to the narratives, to the interpretation that the researcher creates, but somehow this is a bit hidden by so much theory and formulations, and is also so what if we never leave this dimension? No, this is a bit the question. No, so we would be able to study how to live together while we are living together, how to create our worlds while we are still all the time creating and negotiating. So we will need to really face the problem of putting together theory and practice. No, because we are somehow assisting our own presence in the world, our negotiations, and also sharing the problem of creating the meaning, the consistent interpretation of what is happening to us. No? So this is a bit what fits this research, and this material you are seeing there, that's mainly trash. No, this is the material with I work. No, we basically collect everything we find on the street and take care of it till it disappears by use. So we are all the time collecting, separating, classifying, cataloging the materials, studying the materiality of this culture that we are surrounded by, but also that we are made of it and we made it. No, so the hypothesis we are exploring in practice is that this garbage, this trash, informs us because it's in a fractal perspective. This is the same of our society, no? So we can study and we can learn from the materiality of the things, what relations we are creating, what procedures we are really feeding, even if we believe in other dimensions, even if our values are the highest one, but in fact, what we are practicing, what we are doing, what we are creating. And so this materiality, these objects, the way we discard and dispose them, they inform us a lot of dimensions, of concrete dimensions of we are really doing besides our beliefs, no? And then we may be able to study how to put this together, no? So how to somehow put in a more stable, or not stable, but in a more balance, no, between what we believe and the world that we really perform with our actions, our way of doings, the way we buy things, the way we discard them, and so on. No, so basically we do this all the time, and what we do with this, we create different kinds of games. So what we can see there in the background, that is kind of board game on the floor, no? We basically use this material to perform a game of composition, no? Where we can be around a small world, no? And recreate this atmosphere, this landscape with our actions using these objects that in fact are also agents, no? And see the consequence, the ethical no, and political consequence of our gestures and choices in real time. No, so basically using this material not in a representative way, in a representational way, but mainly like with their performativity, no, studying what they can do and they cannot, so the operations that they perform. And this will be very important to my work with Gustavo as well, because we work in cooperation, so studying the operations, the way the material operates, and then how they cooperate, no, to create realities, experiences, sensibilities, and so on. No, so basically we do this in a small scale in the beginning, and then we enlarge this scale in different degrees, but this is basically a way to see how the game is practiced. And basically this is just an example of a game, just to see the basics of this procedure, because in this game we don't know the world we will have. No, we start by someone like this image, this first image with the scissors, for example. This is the first step. This is the first position of a game, for example, of a composition game. And our proposal is that we don't compose in a authorial terms, in fact, but we just pay attention of what is happening and asking situated questions. We map the possibilities of this emergent reality. So basically this was with the scissor, and was the first position, let's say, and then on the high right we have the second position. So this person, oh my god, I'm sorry, what is happening?
Fernanda, maybe we just have to.
Okay, I'm sorry. This just left a bit the image. So this person decided to use this as hair, and then people just follow this in an emergent way, no, to create a world. But in the first step, this could be everything, no. And here we have this when this arrives to a body level completely, no. And in that case, so this I decided to share these procedures and practices because somehow this is transversal to all my practice and creation, and also this is present in my work with Gustavo. Especially, I may remark some dimensions of my practice that basically is changing, the procedures of ethnography, using the procedures of ethnography, of the encounter, but really taking serious the dimension of accident, no, of relations, so the collision of the encounter in itself, with all with beauty and difficult, no, and using also duration, like being there, no, sustaining this encounter as material and as two. No, this I am like remarking because it's present in my work, but also in this collaboration we have, and in the way we put together dance, anthropology, and create dimensions of like work with installative, performative dimensions, no? So we focus in this performativity of the encounter, which means basically that we allow the event, the situations, in the case of situated practices, the city or other surroundings, we allow them to perform to us. We start by recognizing their performativity inherent, no? And then we just run a procedure of describing it instead of interpreting it, instead of immediately putting meaning and transforming this into representation. We just allow ourselves to describe what is happening, no? So instead of creating a reality based in explaining it, in giving it, in responding why this is happening, we just pay attention to the different ways that intercross in this encounter, no? And we use very situated questions, no, the interrogative forms that we already have in our languages, most of them, no, but to make sure that we are there for the situation, and for allowing to be affected, but what is happening, how it is happening, and also the dimension of space-time, so where, when it's happening, no? And then we may be able to see this magical, that everyday events that are intersecting, no? So these different ways, they are cooperating, they are operating together to create what we feel that is just there, but not. It's really all the time being redone, recreated, no? And maybe then we can put like go into the small different gaps that open up to this reality and intervene, creating small propositions for people who live in that place, or also in the case of steaming cities has to do with transporting some sensibilities that we experience in a place to another, and so on. No? So this, if people then wants to talk a bit more, we can go back for this. But now I would just like open space to Gustavo present a bit of his work as well.
Yeah. Hello. Fernanda, can you? Yes. So my name is Gustavo Ciríaco. As Fernanda, I'm from Rio de Janeiro, based in Rio. We share this past of anthropology, social sciences, but also a dance practice. We come from the same school, Rio, which is Viana. It's a school based on somatics and awareness of the body. And I think it really is also our practice of how it is to be where you are right now, and where you're sitting, your surroundings. This is my house. You see each other's house. So I have a dance background, but my projects have been over the years changed from projects related to landscape, architecture, and city operations. So when I hear the first images is Here As We Walk, a project I did 10 years ago already, over with Andreas Sandberger, an Austrian artist. And basically it's a walk. I walk in the city in silence with 6 to 22 people. And the idea that because the elastic is elastic, it takes the forms of the spaces we go through. Sometimes it's like this, sometimes it's bigger. And this is a tactile way. It's a relation when we talk about architecture, an experience of architecture, if you want to contrapose to the visual, you say that it's tactile. So it's something that we touch, but also something that it's a relationship we have with sculpture. So seeing architecture as a sculpture, it's very present in this work and also in my practice. And also, so this elastic makes the way of having the private place in the public space, and I'll separating this group from the rest of the people. What do? We take a basic thing from theater, which comes from the Greek origins, is theatron, which is a place with a view. So we choose places to view the city, and through stopping with this group in silence, it's like the city is performing to us, and we recognize things that are very obvious in the city, but then we see them as things that are taking place every day and make a city a city. The other photo, and this project is Fernanda has also been performing this project, so she knows it well. So another project. So as I'm very interested in interdisciplinary projects involving different ways of producing poetics. And here, this case is Where the Horizon Moves. It takes the horizon as this changing fiction and also reality of how we relate to our surrounding, and to it represent the future or the past. And so with the basic thing of something that comes from very far, so like this rhino, if it comes from far away, you don't see that it's a rhino, and then it's coming suddenly, it's a rhino. And what is it, a rhino to see you? And so imagine a child, a person, or a group of old ladies, and singing, and how that impacts on ourselves through affections, but also through mental structures and collective shared fiction of the horizon. So so this next is Gentle Nova Giant. It's relating to landscape, but with different scales. We normally relate to nature with the idea of landscape. It's again a fiction, and using scales of how big something is, and this gentle is us, is how we are related to the world, and the global pandemic now is a huge example of our bad interaction with the world, and how it is gets to catastrophic results. And so, and we relate to nature as a landscape, and through different its theology of using, in this case, gentleness of giants is dead landscapes, dead, beautiful, sublime landscape, but with nobody alive. So how is it? What is still happening in the natural flow of nature, but no one to see, which is with no bevel there of this show. So the next is also part of the theology between dogs and wolves. This time with a more optimistic, is sharing the sensations of landscape of senior citizens, old guys and ladies, and using the drawings of children from 7 to 9 to portray their sensations using shadow theater. Funnily enough, between dogs and wolves, it's the name. It's from a French expression, which is le chien loup. It's this time of the day that you don't recognize a wolf from a dog. And also, funny enough, Bergman said, is the time that most people die and most people come to this world. So the next and final one is cut by all sides, by all corners. Also, this as Fernanda said, how we can recognize in what we see, the things we see, and taking the buildings around us as sculptures, expanded sculptures. A basic thing is a line. So a line, you can see the line of a computer, the line of the windows. We're talking through the lines of the photos, but also the lines of, and how, as in the city, the things that are surround us, they're being thought, they're being man-made. So there is some mental, there's structures behind this, and I'm interested in the project of how finding this and make a poetic use, like cut by all sides, open by all corners. It's like we can describe a sculpture, but we can also describe a building. And so like the line of line, because the window, and so on. So we can move on, I think, and then go to, sorry, this is just, this is my last project, which is Covered by Sky, and it's translating experience, landscape experience from artists into installations in a museum and gallery and garden space. So being very briefly, Elliot Siklich are two artists, and phenomenal Brazilian artists, which do inform me and also many other Brazilian artists, and we should take here some points that will connect us to the what will be very fast. So sensorial activation by the public, so the spectator, it's participator, as you know. So through their presence, the thing becomes something like platforms. So the interest in producing platform experience, so that what is produced is something that people experience, and experience the key word for me and for Fernanda, I assume in our projects. And delirious evident and meticulous order, just like Carnival, that you are bad and delirious, but there was meticulous order to put all that together so that you can have this incredible pleasure. But it's also a sentence by Elliot Sika, which was a very artist which saw very strict with his conceptions, but left open space for the experience of the visitor. And the inhabitants of architecture by attention to its performatives, especially trying to see which verbs are there. A door opens and closes as the feeder opens and closes a scene. And design provide experience. I think we can move finally to 3D labs. Oh, just some images, so you can clock, but you can Google them, please.
Yes, we'll share a little bit with you of this project that we are working on now, Steaming Cities. This is a site-specific and nomadic project. And the proposition that we are exploring in this project is how to transport steams of a city to another. And what we understand by steams in that case is that kind of emanations that happen when the collision happens, no? when we as people who are visiting a place, we encounter that place, we have this collision, this accident of the encounter, no? And there is sensations, there is concrete emanations, no, that just um, emerge as consequence in our sensibilities, no, and somehow they design our experience, the experience that we have of this city or of this place, and we have this interrogation of how would it be possible to share this with other people that are not there, maybe people who will never be there, or people who maybe know this place as well, but they for sure have had different emanations, no? Or sometimes they may share some of them, but in a different way, no? So how to offer this again, no, as a gift to other people in other surroundings, no? And somehow recognize this dimension that is far more than visual, no? Because normally the experience more impregnated in our sensibilities about a place and so on has to do with a visual dimension, no? But there is much more, no? There is connected with this lived experience, no? That demands the a direct involvement, no, with the here and now. But how to recreate this, no? And in that case, we really use this, how to capture this in its operational dimension, no? So it's really following somehow this quote by Oiticica, no? Because there is a meticulous attention that we need to put on in order to recognize this as operations and cooperations that are creating a sensorial and intimate somehow an affective experience, but at the same time to also allow this have and preserve this magical, no, atmosphere, this sensation that seems to be irrational sometimes, that is connected to dream, to how we recreate, we redream our daily lives, no?
Yeah,
So
just one point.
yes,
Not just if you permit me. Also, the idea is that's not collecting the city as a souvenir, like a book, like like a guide. It's not in that sense. But how these teams, these operations, the way it happens in such a place, can be informative for other people of ways of being together, of ways of alternative ways, like maybe as Bonaventura, the Portuguese sociologist, calls as epistemologies of the South. It's also a way of recognizing ways of interacting in the city as a sensation, but also as a precious thing that maybe a postcard doesn't transmit, but it can go beyond, it's much beyond that. I
yeah.
think we just have to be a bit faster.
Okay, okay, so let's go. Basically, we developed this project inside this long-term procedure that we are doing in the last many years. No?
Yes, decade.
We basically did this in different cities, and this is basically creating a lab, a temporary research zone of attention, no, where we map these operations of a neighborhood or the surrounding, and we did this in different cities. We would like to give an example of one of these sensitive sensorial maps. Oh, I'm sorry again, because yes. And this is the city labs that our methodology has to do with applying some tactics, and normally we do this collaborating with local people as well, and basically our tactics are really connected to daily procedures that we do every time. Basically the two movements, no, this to displace or to place ourselves there, no, so to walk and wander, or to remain and sustain the relations and pay attention to the micro variations that just emerge for us if we give them space, no.
Yeah, like
And so we collect practicing these two tactics. I'm sorry.
yes, just to make a point is funnily enough, because of the lockdown, we were placing ourselves more time at home. So we probably realize how big or how small your house is. It's like this imbalance. And so probably you'd see much more things that you used to see of people who live with you, but also with dimensions how you use your house. So because of this placing, this remaining, and because we're not walking so much. Go on.
Yes, exactly. So this is two procedures that everybody does. So it's really something that we can include, no, and also recognize the information that everybody is capturing as researchers. No, everybody is researching the life while is living. No, and so we basically start these two procedures, and using them, we create some sensorial experiential maps, and with them we create programs or reprograms, no, that are basically sentence tasks, something that synthesize what we are going to propose to that place, how, where, when, and then to just create conditions for something to happen or not, no, and then we share this experience and maybe we adjust, so we reprogram.
Oh, Fernanda, you think I was just remind me of Nando Messias' experience, because maybe you can give a quick idea of what it is, of an example.
Yes, we can. Yes, yes, please go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the we did once in Lisbon around a square, and one of the participants, Nando Messias, is a queer artist from Brazil, living based in London, and had suffered a homophobic attack in London, and he wanted really to address this situation, but then he used this square to try to find out ways of maybe he could use in London. So basically, we would walk with him around the square, one by one, like it would be always one person with him alone. And because we were together and had spot a certain trajectory, people react to us a certain way. So me being together with him ignite maybe the queer identity, because I'm also gay, and being with other people, so the square revealed itself in different terms according to who was following him. So very simple thing, which program was walking around the square for a certain trajectory each time to the person, and you also use music as a soundtrack. And so that was the first program, and then we went on.
Yes, yes. This is an example of a program, no, and small proposition, and we also thought to share an example of one of these maps. No, so this is some of the operations we mapped when we did the City Lab in New York City. For example, the first one was this. The sky, we call this operation skylines of litter. It is basically like putting together two dimensions that are not never put together when the city was telling its own narrative and mythology, no, but in fact we have this very visual idea that is propagated everywhere of the New York skyline as something that is a touristic attraction and something that really is connected to the identity of this city or this place. But in terms of being having a pedestrian experience, we are all the time being catched by these other kinds of skyline that are the garbage that are put on the street everywhere, recreating in fact this a very similar landscape, but not really put it together in like the narratives. No, and this is much more a pedestrian, a walkable experience compared to this other one that is much more with no flash. That is this image, this idea of the skylines and so on. No, then we also have this other dimension that are really creating this idea of the cropping verticality. So the city organize and create for us an experience where the sky is always accessible, but also is always mediated by this giant atmosphere that also informs the people who live there another size for them. Like it's all the time giving them this concrete sensation that we are just a small micro being that really is there on the mass with no, and also together with this other operation that is really connected to the previous one, that has to do with this labyrinthical grid structure dimension that also is a condition to everyday life, where people navigate as if they are in a giant board game. And so people who are familiar with this, people who live there or grew up there, they navigate very fast through these grids, and they collide every time with other people that are just like lost in this grid, because this grid is not in their bodies, no. And this is present in the way the city designed it, in an urban plan, but this is everywhere, including in a supermarket, for example, no? Then we also have this other, like some other voices, no, that really has this microscopical scale, that are contrasting with this giant of the verticality, the cropping, the grids, all of these giant dimensions, including the imaginary of the skyline, the beautiful skyline. They are in contrast with this small microscopical uncanny thing dimension, no, of how people recreate a complexity, a beautiful complexity, in a small scale, in a pedestrian scale, creating this always mobile homes. And also this is another sensation that is there everywhere. In this case, is a literal steam, no, because this is something that is really present in everyday life in that city, but in fact seems that nobody knows where these steams come from and what they mean. So this is there, like creating a movie sensation, a theatrical sensation in every corner, as if there is a machine doing this,
Yes.
or recreating for a scene. But in fact, this is there. We don't know exactly how and where it's coming. So there is different narratives, like kind of myths, no, connected with these steams. Different people there in the city tell us different stories, and in fact, we found in that case that was really nice to preserve this polyvocal, no?
Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Polysemic, like storytelling about these themes that, in fact, they are explainable, of course, but it's much more interesting to see how they seem different, also narratives around this. No, see, this is just an example, no, of how we map the sensation. So this is what we are calling operations, no, something that is really everywhere, and create, no, the circumstance, the where, when, where we are going to move in, and also the house, the what's, all of this together create the experience, and also create our bodies. Has this bodily dimension, no? So just recognize this, and then use this materiality to repropose these things of a city.
Fernanda, just to
Yes.
add, yes, also as many of the cities we are not from that city. Of course, there are many things we don't perceive, and so the interaction of city labs with local participants are very fundamental, so that they can, through the eyes and their feedback, make us see things that we don't see. And so it also process also for them to see how we see what we see. So it's this interactive is very important for the city lab, and also very important for the steaming cities, because it's finding partners in this collective scene.
Yes,
I think
exactly.
we have.
Yes. Now this was the last edition of Steaming Cities that we recreated as a proposition in an installative dimension. So basically transporting a map similar to that one we give the example to another circumstance to offer it. No? So basically there is this recreation of how we can feel more or less the same, how we can connect to this emanation of the city, but not exactly representing or trying to give the same, no, but really recreating this. So this image somehow synthesizes this passage, no, this transportation act. But what we did is a map similar to the New York, in fact, no, in that case with in Vietnam, we basically focus in two really strong dimensions that are there, that is connected to the use of motorbikes that is really everywhere. You know, people are they have this relation. You know, before was with horses or bicycles. No, they told us. No, but where they have this centaurus, no, body. No, everybody is a body plus a motorcycle. No, and also the motorcycle can become different bodies. No, can include other materialities, other people. They have space. They always have space for more people or more material on top of it, and also all the choreography that happens when people are using them all together, the choreography, no, that happens alive by people who are like um, negotiating all the time, know how to share the streets, how to relate to this, and also all the atmosphere that happens around the city because of this, like everything turned to the street, no, the shops, the trash bins, even the rent curbs of the streets, no, they are just like that, like they are always connected to this use of the motorbikes.
And there is one thing also that you mentioned, the choreographic, because anyone who has been to Saigon or to Vietnam realize this challenge, which is to cross a street. How do you cross a street? It's like, oh, nightmare. And realize that you have to understand the other bodies, the velocity, and you can cross very calmly. So it's like a choreography that everybody knows in terms of it's assumed, it's known, and it's knowledge, it's public knowledge. Uh, and so how we're flaneur, we're trying to walk around the city to experience the city as we normally do, but it was very hard because everything was done by motorbike. So even like you said, the litter boxes, everything with the boxes. So what is the displacement there is something else.
Yeah, so there was this dimension that was really strong, and we mapped in our sensibilities different operations connected to this use of motorbikes, and then there was also the way the streets are lived and recreated as like recreating all the time with a strong sense of seasonality. So the uses of spaces, the creation of small private rooms inside of a public space, the way that different provisional ambiances, they are recreated all the time, and all this territorial relation with the place, no, that is strong there everywhere. This happens including inside homes, in fact, no, there is all different ways of recreating a same room inside of a home. No, the place where me and Gustavo, we stayed, had this dimension, and we also saw this in the neighbors. Know that people sometimes in a same room, they eat together, they sleep together, they sometimes create a small familiar shop, no, faced to the street, and in the same room everything happens, and this also happened in the street on the street. No, so basically, we used this dimension also. So this image came directly there from Saigon, and this we decided to use this to open our proposition when we transported these themes, basically transporting the image in itself, to invite people to go in this place that is not the same place, but where we will invite people to feel, to connect with this experience by some proposition, by some offers, invitations, of like navigating in the city, as Gustavo said,
Yes,
with
one.
this.
Yes, here, can you go back one image, please?
This one?
So, yes, funny, this was a view that we found in Saigon, as Fernanda said, a photo. So a typical way of relating to a city, which is a panoramic view. So from the top, as from a bird's eye, you see a city and you phantom what is to be there. But it's totally fake, because when you're there, it's totally different. But so through the image, through this visual invitation, we cut and go through it, and then we establish either through an operation with cut and going through what is to go to the theater, in this case, the format we chose for this translation, and how it is to relocate the city. And so the lines that you see on the floor, they are taking that aerial view of one of the main places in Saigon, around market. That market, Fernanda probably knows the name, but it's a very central market there. And so we use the lines of the architecture of the buildings and replace the buildings with furniture. So there is some dimension, there's a different scale of the city, but where we can go through, and using some operations, some translations of this operation. Of course, we're not in Saigon, we're not in the streets, but there are certain things like where you put your clothes and how putting your clothes establishes a territory because of a use of it, and the steam, and also as a way of relating to the pollution. And here, and using devices like a photo that becomes a film. So also a way of translating in kinetic terms how it is to live, to be in Saigon, which it goes through this mobile. And here we're doing the Vietnamese coffee. I don't know if you have the café soir experience, but it really takes a long time because they prepare the coffee and they decantate the coffee, and so it takes like a long time. And so how it is for a Portuguese audience to experience not as an exotic experience, but as something that was basically there, which is the time that it took. And Fernanda, if you have something to add, just.
No, it's like these propositions has to do with connecting with a different temporality, as Gustavo was saying, and also like the possibility, like yes, it's the invitation for all the senses to engage in these steams, here also with food, in fact. And in this was like the final image and proposition. I don't know, Gustavo, if you want to.
Yeah, we saw many things there. Yeah, we saw many things there that some of them we still don't know. If you relate to the why, would be still not knowing. We relate to the how. There are things that we could perceive, although we didn't understand the dimensions of why and so on. And they are very poetical, like people doing something that we don't know, but so beautiful seeing them, so interesting as operation, which can hinder other things. So here, two things that is very common there to cover things with the shoe, with this shoe there, and how to cover the things. So it's cover buildings without cover marketplaces, and how is to do something that people don't understand. I mean, we're doing this for a Portuguese audience. So they don't know what it is, but they do have access through the operation and for the materiality of that action, for the verbs that bring of it. And so it's a way of translating the first teams of this residency that we had experienced in Saigon with Sanat. We would also like to thank them for that experience. I hope there's some from Saigon there. And then we come us to Manila, which is still in our horizon. And then we have a proposition that you can do in Manila, but also if you're in New York, in Rio de Janeiro, in Lisbon.
Yes, in fact, everywhere it's possible to, to include the situational conditions, to do this kind of research that is connected to displacement and placement, considering that most of us are placed, in a strong way inside homes, confined. So, but still, how to activate this sensibility, this kind of attention, so this was like an invitation that we also find that may be a first way for us to connect with the ambiances of Manila, even before we arrive there.
Yeah. So I'll leave this for you because we're reaching our time. So it will tell us some of the stories that have not been seen, but just map everything that is not happening. Lots of things are not happening. Probably you're not hugging many people. So try to perceive which operations appear as new, like didn't they happen before? All this bird, what they did, but you didn't notice them. Probably where you are, lots of things that you can notice them. And how much do these operations A and B affect the way you experience space and time? Huge question, I know, but really try that, and I would be very curious to know from you in the future our context if you want to share your experiences. And if Fernanda has anything to say,
we'll be happy to receive this, like the collection, you made of what is happening, what is not happening, what is new in your sensibilities, and so on.
Thank you so much, Fernanda, Gustavo. This was an amazing presentation from your previous works and your recent collaboration. And it's quite amazing how you were able somehow to transport us to the forms of how you research, the categories that you come up with as a way of mapping places that would later develop into projects that have a theatrical setting or a urban performance setting. And I think that what we wanted to do precisely with these seminars in the section of dance and choreography is to learn from this type of operations, as you say, to learn how the body relates in a certain way in the city, and how could we understand those relationships amongst people in public spaces as a way to understand in general how knowledge is produced, how culture is produced. And I'm looking at some of the questions. There's a question from Santiago Villanueva. Maybe we can go directly to some of those questions. He's asking if you could talk a little bit more about that relationship of your work with Oiticica and Ligia Clark, since you mentioned it. And this will give you, some time to. I know that you went a bit fast on that. If you want to go back to that slide so people have a reference, that would be great. I think it also,
Passou.
As you
Mais embaixo.
There.
So Fernando,
If you prefer to go, yes, please.
Yeah. So for those who are not familiar with Oiticica and Ligia Clark, now first addressing to Oiticica, he had installations which were very much based on the experience it provide to people, but not the experience he want people to experience, which was an open source or experience. Of course, it guided, like here, this is the image of Tropicalia on your left. Uh, and so it's you can see sand, different kinds of materials, and some space that you could go inside. It can be seen as a reference to the Brazilian slums, but it's not in a figurative or representational way. It's more translating the materiality that he found, because he lived one part of his life in Mangueira for a short time, and it was really important for his development of some of his key artworks as parangolés, which is a sort of costume that you wear, but formless. And so each person can wear it in a different way and produce different forms through the kinetic way that it appropriates that. But key, the relation that I find interesting, of course, many things in his work are interesting, but it's the dimension that it's not his artwork, his installation of platforms for sensible experience, so that each person will experience it different. I have an anecdote. I story about it. Once I was in London, there was it in Tate Modern, and there was a Tropicalia installation reproduced there. And I was waiting because there are some birds in the installation. And so, like those two people there, they look at the birds. And so I was waiting because there are not so many people that are allowed. And then the guardian I feel that she wanted really to leave that place. I thought maybe she wants to go to toilet, or maybe it's the end of her working time. And then another guardian came, and then I was surprised that she wanted actually to go inside the installation to play with the birds. So this for me was wow. That's what it is. It's a place for all kinds of experiences, and our relation is how we can create something, conceive something, have a conception that allows a certain designer of an experience, but it's not, we don't dictate what people are going to feel, but we have leave it open. And then also this other photo of now going to Alicia Clark is how through different materials you can touch and make people feel or experience because of the textures of the materials that intermediate our content. I mean, being super brief, but just to say that how things can work as interfaces for our relationship with the sensible dimension of our experience, and the interface that can interconnect us. And one last thing on Sika, when he was first shown in London, you had to take your shoes off. Many people didn't do. And that was a way not experience the basic things of the experience of installation. But there are many mothers and their children love to go there because they could have the experience of sand, of earth, and straw.
Great. Yeah. I think that when Fernanda was talking about her previous work with the objects that are laying on the floor, you talked about them in a way that was very much connected to that materiality that create some kind of an anthropology through those objects, no? And it's just as a way to connect to how you've explained with Tisika, how could certain objects transport us and tell us about class, about a social space. And I think that, yeah, it was very important how you emphasize on your interest on the materiality on the subjects, but how they are activated by the body, which are staged either through the video or staged live. And again, we're in a live Zoom in the context of pandemic where we are afraid of being together and of touch and of groups, and somehow these practices like dance or the way that you see dance and its relationship to city and the objects produced in life is something that create it gives another it has another layer nowadays, a more powerful layer because it's something that is being not allowed, or there's now many limitations to have these interactions, especially when you talked about your piece of the elastic. It's very clear how in the elastic this relationship of the collective is such a strong image to think about it today.
Wow. And it's Bernard, maybe you want to comment first?
No, I was just like realizing that the elastic, no, that create this membrane, no, that is um, open, in fact, no, to the outside, but at the same time, no, create an inside. Well, and this permeability was possible, and I hope it will be possible again. Um, but know how to how somehow this recreates our skins and different ways that at the same time we can have this notion, no, of our place, our territory, what is our identity, our city, our but still be open to the to the new, to the relations, to the encounter and so on. No, so how to give space again for this in this context. No, this gain another strength now. No, and it's a challenge. No, how to open up again for this kind of encounter, including in the case of collecting the garbage outside. This also puts different questions now. No.
Yes, and it's funny that when this piece was very inspired by Elitsika, by a reading of a book on Elitsika's work, Politics and the Structure of Slums. And it's a book written
How is it called? Sorry.
It's a book called The Swing of the Sambas, a Estética da Ginga, which is the status of the samba swing, maybe, translation by Paula Bernstein, and she addresses how architecture might have an impact on how you perceive, not might have, but the relation between samba and the structure of slum, because very regular because of the regularity and how your body has to balance and cross different materials on the floor and the dimensions of the streets gets some imbalance that is particular to samba, and which is informing a lot this piece, because in the city the floor is flat, is flattened, and which is different from how can we produce some irregularity so that the coming to the experience gets back to our daily experience of the city. And nowadays that experience is totally, how can we reconnect with how that phone would be able, maybe using leisure clocks as inspiration, as finding ways of covering us or being in together, how it is to be in bubble plastic or I don't know. Or in this yeah.
Thank you. That was great. I think that's it was wonderful to have you. We did it with
Yes.
3 different time zones. I thank you again for transporting us in a way to a medium that requires space, time, and the body, but the way that you navigate us, especially at the end towards the project in Saigon, we felt ourselves somehow entering, like the audience entered in the city through that wallpaper and crossing, that wall image that you had there. And we, for the people who are watching us, thank you for joining. And we are going to have in June other seminars and also screenings. I don't know if Daisy, if you can put again Fatima's presentation just to have the portraits of our upcoming um, leaders of the seminars. I think that Fernanda has to unshare her screen. And we will have Susan Stryker very soon with us. She's a trans theoretician who has made incredible work on the figure of Christian Jurgensen, known to be the first um, trans woman who became a public figure and who happened to pass through the Philippines in the 1960s and appeared in a movie. And she has based most of her research on that film. Isabel Whitlick, that will speak about the Signals Gallery and the role of David Medallia in that important place of experimentation. And Jonathan Andrade, a Brazilian artist, who we will do a screening and talk with him on his incredible work that has to do a lot with also how to live together and rural contexts, which is a subject that we will develop further. So without further ado, thank you so much again, and we'll see you next time. We will announce very soon the dates and the time, depending on all these time zones of all of these guests. Thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Thank you very fast, Fernanda. Thank you all.
Yeah.
Thank you all.
Thank
See
you
you
all.
soon.
See you soon. It's my trying my Filipino. I'll learn it. Okay. Como está?
Perfect.
Bye.
All right.
Bye.
Goodbye.
Gabi.
Bye.